Hey guys, it's Chris here. I want to talk to you about a subject that a lot of people really don't want to talk about, and that's account suspensions and also counterfeit claims. I'm going to talk about both in this video. I'm going to talk about my run-ins with both. So these are all personal experience. I'm going to tell you why I got suspended, why I got counterfeit claims, how I dealt with them, and maybe just give you some perspective on if you have to deal with these issues, what you might have to look forward to. Now, it's real important here to let you guys know that these are not inevitabilities when selling on Amazon. I know plenty of sellers have sold for a long period of time, never had an IP claim, never had a counterfeit claim, never had a suspension, okay? But I also know a lot of sellers that have. So the longer you sell on Amazon, it does seem like this is more likely to happen, but you shouldn't worry about it. You can get suspended and then get unsuspended. You just have to play Amazon's game with them. So what I'm going to do here is not just talk about, oh, woe is me, I got suspended for a weekend. I'm going to actually tell you guys what I did to get unsuspended to give you some perspective on what you may need to do. Because I see a lot of people talk about suspensions and they're not talking about them the right way. So without further ado, I'm going to start by talking about the time I got suspended. Then I'm going to talk to you about some counterfeit issues that I've had. Okay, so last year, 2019, what a time to be alive. Now, I'm sitting there, minding my own business, not knowing what's about to happen in 2020, and in October, I got suspended. I got suspended on a Thursday, middle of the month, got my notification. So, of course, I'm like, well, what did I get suspended for? Well, let's go in a time machine to about 4 years before, so 2015. In 2015, I went into an Ollie's, I bought some dumb toy, sold it on Amazon. Sold 3 of them. Nothing too major. Fast forward 5 years, somebody took over that listing because it had positive feedback, had good ratings, and they changed it into some sort of antifungal cream that seems to be a multi-level marketing antifungal cream. Changed the title, changed the description, the bullet points, and the photos, even the category. When I sold on this listing, it was a toy, and now it's in health and personal care, and it is an antifungal cream. Now, a lot of people at this point are saying, well, why didn't you just delete the listing? Well, that wouldn't have helped me. In fact, deleting your listings and closing listings and stuff like that, it does not make you less likely to get suspended. That's a vicious rumor. Don't worry about it. It's not actually going to help you. You will get suspended whether you close the listing or not. So closing the listing doesn't help. But now I had technically, according to Amazon, sold an antifungal cream, when in fact what I had sold was some sort of like a little xylophone that was in the shape of a dog. So I get suspended because Amazon is saying what I am selling is now a prescription medication. Now let me tell you what the drug name was. It is Bonafide hydrochloride. Basically, that's the main ingredient in Lotrimin Ultra. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, Lotrimin Ultra isn't a prescription medication, you would be correct. However, it is in Canada. So, here's why I was suspended. In Canada, they rescheduled the main ingredient in Lotrimin to be a prescription drug. And there was some sort of confusion at Amazon that they thought that meant it was now a prescription drug in America. And because the listing that I had sold on from the toy had been converted into a product having this main ingredient, they thought I was selling a prescription drug, which I was not. I have actually never sold the Lotrimin brand. I've never sold, anything with this chemical. As far as I can tell, I mean, I've sold a lot of weird crap, so maybe I have. But that being said, so the first thing that I did was I called Amazon. And when I got my suspension notification, there was a phone number. So I called them and I said, hey, and I explained the situation. They said, okay, we understand that. We still need a plan of action. And I'm like, crap. So here's what my plan of action, what I did. So the first thing I did was I admitted fault. That is where people fuck up when it comes to suspensions. They don't admit fault. Amazon doesn't give a shit whether you think you're at fault or not. Let's just get that out of the way. They don't care. But If you admit fault in a way of not necessarily admitting fault, but you're still kind of falling on your sword, that's the way to go. So, in this case, what I basically said was, hey, I understand that this listing is now a prescription medication, or what you're considering a prescription medication, and I had sold on this listing before. Now keep in mind, the product you sell is not that important. This is something I learned with the suspension. The product you sell is not important, the listing is important, which is what is so frustrating, because anybody can change a listing from one thing to another. It's extremely commonly done, and that's very problematic, okay, because you can run into this situation. So what I basically had to say was, I have retrained my employees to keep updated on the restricted product list on Amazon. There is a restricted product list in Amazon. You can look it up. It's in the terms of service or in Seller Central. Look it up. Good to know. And I referenced it. Now, this is what was so important. You basically, in the first part of your plan of action, have to take accountability. You have to then list how the problem happened and then how you're going to prevent the problem in the past. That should be your basic format for a plan of action. So I said, here's what the problem is. I was on a listing for this chemical that you now consider to be a prescription drug. Here is why that happened, which is we did not reference that, which of course was kind of bullshit because we couldn't do that anyway, but we had to put it down. And then how we were going to remedy this is in the future, when I go to make listings or when I go to sell something, we will remedy or reference that. Now, I submitted my first plan of action. I was suspended on Thursday. I submitted my first plan of action on Monday and was almost immediately denied. So I went back in and I made sure that my plan of action had more references to the terms of service. That was a criticism I got. I actually consulted with somebody else that does plans of action, and they made me some recommendations. So what we did was I went in and referenced more the restricted product list, and then when I resubmitted, I got unsuspended. I was suspended, I think, about 6 days. Okay, I'd have to go back and look, and it's really not that important. So, lesson is, you can kind of get suspended for anything, because I got suspended for selling a prescription drug that I've never sold on a listing that, when I did list on it, was a toy. It's very confusing, and this is not a good system. My criticism is that because anybody can change anything from anything, why was I penalized for that? But it's Amazon's playground. I gotta live with it. The most important thing to take away from that story is how to actually format a plan of action. If you ever have to write a plan of action, I really recommend looking in the seller forums, because there's a lot of people that talk about it there. The Amazon seller forums, not Facebook. Don't go on some beginner Facebook group and say, hey guys, how do I write a plan of action? You're going to get some really crappy results. And the other thing is this. When I wrote my plan of action, I actually had somebody else write it. Basically, I wrote it and then I had somebody format it and make it sound like an actual adult human wrote it. Because I'm not really great at writing things like that. If you're from corporate, so like when I have Nicole on, Nicole had been in HR for like ever, for like decades. And she's actually written plans of action and done very well with it, because Amazon is communicating at a corporate level with you. So you need to communicate back in a corporate level way. Okay? And you need to keep in mind with plans of action that the people reading it don't really speak English natively. You know, this isn't being read by some dude in Cincinnati. It's being read by somebody in, you know, Bangladesh or in India or the Philippines who has like a minute to read it. So you want to keep it short, sweet, bullet points, bolding, all very, very useful. Okay, so just keep that in mind, okay? If you have zero experience with writing corporate documents like a plan of action, I'd recommend to reach out to somebody that does, whether that's somebody that you know or somebody in the FBA space that does. In fact, if you want to reach out to me, you can, and I have somebody on staff that used to be my boss who is very, very familiar with writing plans of action and has written several, not only for me, but for, you know, friends of mine and other sellers. So, you know, I can hook you up, but this isn't really me making a video to sell that service. I don't really do it very often, but we can do it for you. So let's talk about some counterfeit claims that I've gotten. So about 4 years ago, Bed Bath & Beyond did a liquidation. They sold a bunch of their old inventory, and one of the things they sold was this. So this is a Thibodeau brass knuckle mug. Now, what's important about this is microwave and dishwasher safe. There's no metal in this. It's very high quality, and this is the actual product that was the first product to do this. Now, if you look up brass knuckle mug on Amazon now, you're going to see a very different product show up that looks similar to this, but the brass knuckle part is going to be either brass or steel in color, or like silver in color. And I mean, it looks a little bit more realistic, but then you can't microwave it, and you definitely can't put it in the dishwasher. Sorry guys, we're having these Trump rallies in my town like all the time, which my town votes like 90% Trump anyway, so I don't know why you're having a Trump rally. And if you just heard that noise, it was a bunch of trucks and motorcycles going through my neighborhood, so now they're gone. Okay, so anyway, I bought this from Bed Bath & Beyond, liquidation, but I had an invoice for it. I bought about 120 of them, and I sold them very quickly. So I thought to myself, well, why don't I see if I can buy more from the manufacturer? And I reached out to them, and they were very, very nice, and they actually had a bunch more of these. They didn't really have a way to sell them, so I bought a few hundred from them. Now, let's clarify. I bought them direct from the manufacturer. I didn't even buy these from a distributor. I bought them from Thibodeau, okay? And I had an invoice for them, everything. So now I'm selling them, I'm making my money, it's going great. Then one day I get a counterfeit claim. So the counterfeit claim I get comes from an email address. Now, let's define IP claim and counterfeit claim. An IP claim is when somebody says that you are using their trade dress or intellectual property to sell your product. So an IP claim would be if Thibodeau said, hey, you can't sell this as a Thibodeau brass knuckle mug, okay? Now, that wasn't what the problem was. What they were saying was that I was selling a counterfeit mug. Now, looking at the email address that this counterfeit claim was from, it was at none@gmail.com. So I have no idea who none@gmail.com is, but I'm going to assume it's not really the person that filed a counterfeit claim. And that's really a big problem with counterfeit claims. Anybody can make them. And you can ruin somebody's FBA business that way, okay? Or people's FBA businesses have been ruined that way. So I contact Amazon and I say, okay, what do you need for me to prove and this is authentic? And they say, well, we want some invoices. So I say, okay, here's the invoice. And the invoice that I had, these were about the second batch, okay? The first batch, that was all done. The second batch, I provided the invoice, and it was on letterhead from Thibodeau, everything. And Amazon said, we don't accept that. We need the contact information for the company. So I called up the guy that's the salesperson that I bought these from, and I said, hey, can you do that? He says, absolutely. Give them my contact information. So he gives me his phone number and email address. His email address is salesperson@thibodeau.com, okay? Well, you can't do any better than that. It's literally from the company's name. And he shot me a little letter, said, hey, my name is X, and we sold this to Chris. This is an authentic invoice. These are authentic mugs. Everything about these is good. Amazon denied it. The reason they denied it at this point was this had drug on for so long that my invoice was over 180 days old. Okay, Amazon drugged their feet on this for almost 3 months with me going back and forth, providing invoices, providing contact information for the company, the people I bought this from, and the people that manufactured it. So finally, after over 180 days, now, this is something that's important. In the terms of service, Amazon says that they will not accept receipts older than both 180 days and 360 days. So it's inconsistent which one they mean. But they said 180 days in my case. So now at this point, it's been over 180 days, but I'm still fighting with them, trying to get this off my account, even though basically all that happened was I couldn't sell this anymore. But I didn't want to have counterfeit claims on my account. So then they say, okay, we'll do a Cuba scan and we're going to check it against the other items in the bin. So they're basically going to make sure that my product is the same as all the other products sold on the ASIN. Well, there's a problem with that. Everybody else on the listing was selling counterfeit ones. So this is actually what the listing was for. It was the branded Thibodeau mug, everything. They sent me back a photo of my mug, which is in the box from Thibodeau, in a poly bag, everything, next to the mug that they have, and they're like, well, this is what the listing's for. And the mug that they're showing is the brass knuckle variety from AliExpress that has the silver handle. Now, the product photos for this have the white handle. They say dishwasher and microwave safe. The one that they're showing me as being authentic is not actually authentic. So, I never got it removed. That's it. Even with having the manufacturer say, yes, Chris bought these from us. Yes, here is our contact information. Call us at our corporate email, or call us at our corporate phone number. We'll verify this. Amazon still denied it. And then when they finally checked, they looked at their own counterfeit product to see that mine was counterfeit because it didn't match the counterfeit product. It was very frustrating. So that's one I never got taken care of. I still have that on my account all these years later. So, you know. Well, listen guys, here's why I made this video. I just wanted to tell you kind of some behind the scenes information about Amazon, how this can be really frustrating sometime. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from selling on Amazon. It's the best job I've ever had. I absolutely love doing it. But there have been some ups and downs. So I hope that you take this and learn from it and, you know, kind of go into selling on Amazon with a more level-headed and educated approach. Anyway, guys, get out there, make a lot of money, and have a great night.